So how to manage your real estate business like a business. So this is one of our core training classes. And basically our goal is to, introduce you to just business and organization ideas to help you manage the business component of your real estate career separately. So this is not a class of like, how do I grow my business or how do I build my business? Like we literally have a class called Building Your Business that I think is happening in a couple weeks. And that's what we'll talk about then. Like, how do I lead gen? How do I get myself busy? But the goal today is, obviously, when you started your real estate career, you became like the president and CEO of your own business. You also became all these other roles. And so we're going to kind of talk through that. So before we get going, I'll give you, because I'm a lawyer, I'm going to give you my caveat. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial planner. I have zero, I hardly even do my own taxes because it's so painful. But this information is just suggestions that and insights I've gathered over time from other agents who have been doing this a long time. And I obviously have been doing this a long time too as an agent. So my first tip is you're highly encouraged, obviously, to engage professionals to help you. You're gonna need that because now you're, an independent contractor and you can keep track of your expenses and budget and, you're running a business. So that's where we'll get going. So this is where I'm going to make you guys be interactive. You don't have to unmute and show yourself on video if you don't want to, but you can put it in the chat. Just what are the different roles that an agent plays in a transaction or in general? Now that this is your business, what are your different roles? Suggestions? Advisor, therapist. Yup. What else? You're a liaison. Yep. There's literally no wrong answers. Sometimes you're the dog poop scooper and the yard man. Like that's sadly.
Confidant.
Yes, you're a confidant for sure.
I feel like project manager comes up a lot.
Yep. Your project, you're connecting the pieces. I always like to say in a transaction, this is the way I like our agents to think about it. Like you're the quarterback. Like obviously a transaction is complicated and you have a team and you have your title people and you have your loan officer and you have your client, you have the agent on the other side, but you're the quarterback and you're the one that has to be making sure that you're watching the financing deadline and whatever. So I always like to say like you're the quarterback. But these are just some ideas, right? You're a marketer, you're a self-promoter, you're a lead generator, you might be a social media star, you're a stager sometimes, you're a detective, you got to figure things out, you're a friend, you're a babysitter, I tried to add more this morning and then this is an image and not text, so I couldn't add more, but we could go on and on. We could spend the next 45 minutes just talking about all the different things that you guys might do as part of a transaction. But the most important thing I would say is that you're the CEO and the CFO of your business now, right? You're a business person. So let's talk about that. As the CFO of your business, like what do you need to know? What do you need to be doing? And we're just going to walk through some bullets. Again, you can do this however you want to do this. These are just suggestions of things you should be thinking about. Everyone's going to do it a little bit different and you just have to figure out how it works for you. But these are suggestions I've gathered. A lot of this content is built over time with feedback from agents, and these are suggestions. So keep at least 2 months of living expenses in your like personal checking account, right? So you have a cushion, and keeps at least 6 months of living expenses in an emergency bucket, right? I always tell people, especially when we're talking to new agents who want to join us, that if you don't have 6 months to a year of savings, you need to save that up before you transition into real estate. Hopefully you will have your first transaction sooner than 6 months into the business, but it's very possible that you don't. So you need to have that much saved up. This is not a company where we have people who are like, oh, I have a job, but I'm starting at Briggs Freeman on the side. Like that is not for us. Like we want people that are full-time, wholeheartedly like devoted to real estate, who can show up to classes, who can get themselves going. So that's that. Hire a financial planner. This was advice from an agent. They can help you implement systems to provide tax savings and just get your stuff set up properly from the get-go, right? Understand what can and can't be written off. We're going to talk about that. Allocate your paychecks to your expenses as they come in before you spend anything. Pay your taxes quarterly. This is a big one so that it doesn't bite you that you're paying penalties. Like this is painful for me for whatever reason. I don't know if any agent who's been doing this for a long time has a genius way of keeping track of this, but definitely pay your taxes quarterly. We still have very experienced agents who don't, and then they're like, oh, I hate myself, and there's just no reason not to do it. So figure out how to make it work. Figure out how you're gonna track your expenses and then reconcile at least once a quarter, right? Because obviously when you're agents, you're spending money on random things. You might be entertaining people, you're spending money on photography and marketing. Like you need to be tracking your expenses in a thoughtful way. And we have some suggestions on how to do this. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. Of course, starting your own business is overwhelming.
Too late.
Too late. Don't feel overwhelmed. I know it's hard, but we're gonna like eat the elephant one bite at a time as much as we
This
can.
helps.
Good. Use an app to track your mileage. I use Mile IQ. I'm very bad at this, but it is what it is. Some people have suggested Everlance on these calls before. The best tip I ever got when I moved from law into real estate was with my CPA was like, get a separate credit card or debit card if you don't do credit cards that just pay for real estate expenses so that then you're deciding at the point of sale, this is a real estate expense and you can pay your Briggs Freeman fees on that. You can pay for photographers and then all your real estate expenses are in one place and you're not going through and sorting out on your credit card. Like this was personal and this was a work dinner and this was photography. It just makes it a lot cleaner and easier. That was my best tip. I still run all my different like businesses that way where they all have their own bank account and their own credit card, and then I can keep things relatively separate because I'm a human tornado. I'm not an inherently organized person as much as I want to pretend to be one. I'm just not. So, and then you need to know like the basic fundamental amount that you need to get going and what your costs are to kind of stay in business. So you really have to know like your finances pretty well, obviously, to be successful. Like this is not a place to be willy-nilly. You kind of need to know and have a plan. Okay, and then, I said this before, reconcile your expenses and your income on at least a quarterly basis, probably monthly is better, just to understand like, where am I, right? And then know your startup and your investment costs. And this is something I saw John was on this call. We could work on this with Sherry and the agent experience coordinators of kind of putting numbers to this so that you guys have like a general idea of like what are my costs going to be to start up and what are my costs going to be every month and what do I need to sell to make this make sense for me. Okay, so commission checks. This was actually a big one. This was an agent suggestion to include this. So when you get a commission check, like what do you do with it, right? Like I said, you can, one suggestion is open a separate business banking account to deposit checks into and then distribute it from there, right? So it's not going straight into your bank account and getting spent right away on personal stuff. Like put it in a business banking account. Usually if you have a personal account, you can open a business one like for free in addition. So open a separate business banking account. And then, as your checks come in, divide them and then distribute. So put it in savings, do your expenses, set it aside for the IRS. And then, set aside donations. The checks go fast when you're putting all of these things where they need to go. And then I have one agent, she pays herself on a schedule. She produces consistently now. So she puts all of it and then she just pays herself a little bit and she watches her like business profit kind of grow. And then she kind of takes a distribution if and when she needs it. So that's not a suggestion for everyone. It's just a way that one of our agents did it and she found it really helpful when she kind of was producing steadily. How are we doing?
Good.
Good. Okay. All right. So you have to figure out how to track your expenses, right? And I'm not a spreadsheet person. I'm not a finances person. Like this is so hard for me. My mom was horrified to learn that I never like balanced my checkbook. I would mentally be like, how much have I spent and how much is in my, like, she's like, that's crazy. But it is not intuitive to me. We cannot do that with our real estate business. Unfortunately, there are just too many expenses, right? You got to figure out where am I putting this? So if it's Excel, and every, whatever, Wednesday afternoon, you go into Excel and reconcile all of your expenses. If it's Quicken, if it's QuickBooks, if it's Bookkeeper. I had an agent suggest RealtyZam, which is kind of like a online accounting program specifically built for realtors. And when he showed it to me, it was really awesome. Again, any of these tools is only going to be good as the amount of time you put into them. So you got to figure out what's going to work for you. I'm sorry. For me, this is like the most painful part of real estate. There might be some of you that like love it depending on your background, but you got to figure it out. And then you need to, when you are tracking your expenses, like you can deduct, right, your business expenses. So you have to figure out what is deductible, right? This is a list that one of our agents who was in this class before gave us that came from her tax professional. Again, this is not our business. I'm going to stay in my lane, just like we want other people to stay in their lane and let us be the real estate professionals. But this was a list of things that are, potentially deductible. So, confirm this with your list and keep track of these things. Again, for me, the easiest way to keep track of this stuff is just putting it all on one credit card and getting points or cash back, however you do it. I'm a points person. My husband is a cash back person. So this is like a real challenge. But figure out what works for you and what you can deduct and how to keep track of it. But just be mindful, all of these things are potential real estate expenses. So think about your car payments, do you lease, like that kind of thing. All of these things are potentially deductions. So that's kind of being the CFO of your business. Does anyone have thoughts or questions? JB says Gusto is a payroll system you can use to pay yourself, which is awesome. JB, do you have to pay for that or not at the beginning or? She's in a typer. Does anyone have she'll type because I know when she got it in the training room, so then she's getting the like crazy audio. I know how that goes. Thank you. She'll put it in the chat. Questions, thoughts? She says it's you pay, but it's not that expensive. And sometimes you have to figure out like what is an expense that's worth it. I will caution you to go out and pay for everything and be like, no, I'm perfectly set up until you're actually like making money, right? It sets up a W-2 payment if you pay yourself a salary. Awesome. Okay, Gusto. I'll add that to these slides. Thank you. Okay, so so we talked about being the CFO, which for me is like the worst part because I'm a very fuzzy person and not a very technical person. But that's part of the business and you got to figure it out. So I did, and you guys will too. You can't ignore it. Don't be an ostrich and put your head in the sand. It's definitely keeping track of your expenses and figuring out how we're here to like make money. Is what we're here for. So as the CEO of your business, what do you need to know and be doing? Like you're in charge of managing your business, right? What do CEOs do, right? They make sure that people show up, they figure out what's the vision for the company, they make things happen, right? And that you are that now. So you got to figure out what that is. So here are tips that experienced agents who were new ones gave me, right? Like they say work on a regular schedule, even though it's not Monday through Friday, nor is it 9 to 5. Like you kind of have to figure out like what is the cadence for you. Like I go to the office in Fort Worth on Tuesdays and Thursdays because Tuesday is coffee and connect, and then I tour, and then we have lunch, and then I notice more people are in the office. Like ask your manager like what's the busiest day in the office, right? And show up when you can. But figure out what your schedule needs to look like. Obviously, if you're doing open houses every Sunday, like there should be some time off, some days during the week where you maybe are like, okay, well, Wednesday's the day that I don't work because I'm going to schedule all my appointments then and my tennis class or whatever it is, right? So figure out what is a regular schedule for you. That was really hard for me when I transitioned and was used to like sitting at my desk all day, every day to be like, it's 3 o'clock on Tuesday. Like I should be in the office doing something, but no, because I worked all weekend, right? Figure out what your schedule needs to be. Create a daily routine and pay attention to how you spend your time. They said routines are key, right? So much of real estate lead generation is doing tasks that I say are like important, but not urgent, right? Like you don't get it done. If you don't get it done, no one's like, hey, she didn't write her note cards this week, or hey, she didn't show up at that networking event. Like no one really notices, but these things are important to your business. So they're important to get done. So you got to schedule those things, right? So create the routine and schedule it. It's like I write, if Ninja says two notes a day and you find it works better to write 10 at once, put that time on your calendar and do it, right? So figure out what your daily routine is and then, kind of keep track of your time. And then the next one, have written goals and a written business and marketing plan. Even if you're just getting started, you have to have a direction to head, right? The mind is such a powerful thing. You have to know where you want to end up. And even if you don't get there, at least you're going to get closer. So it's like, I want to close 6 deals my first year. I want to close 10 deals my first year. I want to hit $5 million my first year. Like whatever it is, write it down and look at it. It will give you direction. It's really, really important and very powerful to give our brain something to focus on. That's your goals. And then with respect to a business and marketing plan, this does not have to be crazy complicated. It doesn't have to be insane. Just there's so many tools and resources built in at Briggs Freeman. Figure out what are the things that you're going to do and then do them consistently. It is impossible to do and take advantage of everything that's offered at Briggs Freeman. You need to figure out what are the things that work for you and what are the things you actually going to do consistently and do them, right? Russ always says it's like a salad bar. Like there's no one that goes to the salad bar and puts every single thing on their plate, right? And has like a mountain. You go and you pick exactly what you need and make it work for you. And that's what we have here. But there's so many built-in tools. You don't need to have like this extensive budget because you're already paying for it. Is when you pay to be part of this company, there's so many like built-in resources, like the luxury outlook that just came out right now. It's actually a campaign. I think it's going out tomorrow. That our marketing department creates these beautiful email campaigns, and all you have to do is go into ReChat and say send it, and say send it who to send it to, and it goes out for you. It's a really beautiful, really thoughtful, like brand appropriate touch. Plus the luxury outlook is just really interesting information for everyone right now about like, you know, the generational transfer of wealth that's happening. And there's always cool available content at your fingertips for you to share. That I will say, like the email campaigns, the fact that we don't have 100% participation in those from our agents is crazy to me because they're so good and they're so easy. When I organized my database 3 years ago, I went through and like reorganized my database, and I literally created a tag in ReChat called campaign. So now I just go to the campaigns and say, send this to my campaign people. And it was like anyone who I thought would find this information interesting, like got that tag. And it's been really valuable for me in terms of the number of referrals I've been able to generate just by like totally thoughtlessly going in and sending the campaigns out. Bye, Renee. Okay, so writing your goals down and having some type of plan is super, super important. Okay, and then assess on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, like what you need to accomplish and what has been accomplished. Like this is like kind of the key to life. Like you have to be accountable to yourself, right? It's so easy to get lost in this business, like spinning plates and running around and doing whack-a-mole things. Like you have to be intentional and accountable to yourself. Like the top agents know exactly what they need to be doing. If they realize like, man, I'm kind of slow, they can look back and be like, yeah, it was in December, November, December, I basically took off and I didn't do my lead gen stuff. And now my pipeline is 0. But I know if I do X, Y, and Z, I will get to what I need to have done. So, the top agents know what they need to be doing. They can hold themselves accountable for things that they haven't been doing. And you need to be checking in with yourself regularly to make sure you're doing it. So much of this business, because you're on your own and it's like overwhelming and there's all sorts of different things, you have to be intentional and have a plan to stick to it. So, and then have a system and be proactive. This one, you still have to figure it out. That's fine. And it's going to evolve. And there's people, we constantly are working. It's continuous growth all the time, right? I was listening to something this morning about like Kaizen, which is like tiny improvements every day. And that's what we have to be doing, right? Isn't that what Atomic Habits says? Gets 1% better every day. But you have to have a system and stay like proactive all the time. Like this is an active business. You cannot be passive and expect deals to come to you. And then the last one, which just feels timely since no one will speak up here, is like, do not be afraid to ask questions. Like I promise you, if you have a thought on your mind, someone else has it. And also don't be afraid to be like, well, what about this? Like, I disagree. Like, it's okay. Like conversation is good. So just don't be afraid to ask questions. And then also like know what you don't know and surround yourself with the people who do, right? When you're I remember the first time that I literally remember the feeling and where I was the first time that I got an inspection repair amendment on my very first deal and had to like call the agent back. It was a listing and like negotiate. And I remember being like terrified, right? So it's okay. Like if you're going into that conversation the first time and you're not sure what to do, like ask an experienced agent. That's why I do think it's helpful to be in the office and hear the experienced agents having these calls, because then you at least know how like other people have approached it. But don't be afraid to like ask for help. And then when you don't know something, like if you're in an open house and you don't know something, like don't make something up. Be like, actually don't know the answer to that, but I will find it and I will get back to you. That's a better answer, and it makes you sound more intelligent than like making something up that they find out is not true. So, any questions about that? No? Okay. So that's the content of managing your business. I like plowed through that very quickly. I think I was worried because I took so much time talking about core business, but this is the same, different slideshow, same message about Jim Miller that, you know, this is that same episode. Like, please, if you do one takeaway from this, which I always hope that there's at least one nugget in every class that you're like, that was worth my 45 minutes to 1 hour. It's, go listen to this episode because he's so good. And, it's a really, really good one, specifically for people who are at the beginning of their hopefully very long and very prosperous career. So that's the content that I have, but I definitely want to stick around and answer any questions about this, about core training, about setting up your business. You are welcome to give me feedback. You're never going to hurt my feelings. Because feedback I think is super important. So what do we got? Thoughts, questions?
So one question. So is this something y'all normally do, like for new agents coming into Briggs Freeman? Like after, is it like a certain amount of time after they've been here? Because like to me, I've been here a year, but I'm like, I would have loved to have done this day one. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear all of
No,
it. I
no,
don't know.
it's a great question, and I will tell you that we've always offered these, like, ever since we built this, like, these like core skills classes, we've rotated them and offered them like on a quarterly basis, basically. We kind of got away from having an actual program for our newer agents, and I'm so glad you asked this question because I should have
This is
addressed it.
great. It's
Um,
great. Thank you so much.
Well, good, thank you. We got away from that and we really decided, the managers and I decided at the end of last year, and it was honestly based on some feedback from one of our experienced agents who is working with a newer agent. She was like, she needs some more structure and help. And I was like, it really kind of was like, the light bulb was like, yeah, we need to get back to that. So, some of you guys are newly licensed and just got here. Some of you guys have been here for a while, but we think this would be valuable. Some of you guys have come from another state, so you might have been in the business for 20 years, but Texas real estate, every state does real estate very differently, and you just need to understand, like, how do we do it here and what are our Briggs Freeman best practices. So it's a mix. Some of you guys might have already attended like most of the classes because you got here new and you were realizing these classes were valuable. So it's not like you have to start over. We just wanted to make sure that we're kind of at the point now where we really are going to kind of pay attention. Like, we're really focused on being the best at Briggs Freeman. Like, and I think not offering like a formal program for our newer people was a fail on our part. So we're kind of going back to having this program. So the content has always been here, but having this program and really like a space for you guys to support each other. Like, that was one of the things, like when I showed you all those top producing agents, like they came through together and did it together and still like work together. And so for you guys to kind of get to know each other too will be super, super valuable. And we'll do some in-person stuff too, so that you guys get to know each other. So it's not all like classes. We'll do like some fun like networking stuff too. And maybe sometimes if we're in person, I can be like, oh, well, I'm going to teach this class from the Rio Grande training room. So anyone that's at Turtle Creek and wants to come in person, great. Or anyone that's in Fort Worth wants to come in person, great. And we can do it together. Suggestions and feedbacks on what would make this valuable from you guys would be super helpful. So don't be shy. But I'm glad you asked that. Yes, we're kind of resurrecting something that used to exist in terms of an actual program, so that you guys can have like the networking and like the team component, and also so that we can make sure that when we do take someone who's new, like they are committed to being the best and like learning our tools, because you can't get your license and start practicing real estate without training yourself. Like, that's not who we are. There may be other companies that do that. That's not who we are. Is that fair? Anyone? That's a great question. Thank you. JB says she jumps into classes when she needs a fresh perspective. She's listening for nuggets, but she was new here, right? 7 years ago. I can't believe it that it's been 7 years. That's crazy. But she's an awesome like top producer, leans into Ninja, leans into the Sotheby's network. Like, she's such a go-giver too. She'll share everything all the time. So super helpful. Other questions, thoughts? Anyone, managers, want to jump in and share too? How do we get CE credit for the class? Okay, so that's a great question. So the way that CE works is, if you've been licensed for more than 2 years, you do need CE. And, we had all this great training classes, and I think everyone who's a manager at Briggs Freeman is actually also a very good teacher. We're really, really lucky. So we took I became a CE provider. So you have to be like licensed to be a provider and like give Trek all of the stuff and prove that you're like, can be a provider. And once you're a provider, then you can take a class and submit it to Trek to be approved, to be CE approved. So some of the classes that we already had, I just submitted to Trek for CE approval. And every 2 years we have to like refresh that they're approved and the classes will update. But some of our core training classes are CE approved. Not all of them are. Some classes we have that are not part of our core training are CE approved. Like last Friday, we did increasing your average price point. Like that's not a core skill, but we don't necessarily, sometimes we offer those Tuesdays and Fridays at 9. Sometimes we offer them at other times. Most of the time these classes will be a Tuesday and Friday at 9, but not always. So if you do want CE credit in the class, we'll say like, this is for CE credit. You have to like do the Venmo. We're required to charge for the classes. And then you, after the class, I take everyone who like put their license as someone who wanted CE credit. I go and input it into a Trek system and it'll appear like I have to do it within 10 days, but the credit's like immediate. Does that answer your question, Brenda?
She's muted.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Yes, but does this class apply then?
No. So at the
Oh, okay.
beginning of the class, you'll see like CE, this is, I mean, even when we promote the class, we say CE elective or CE contracts, and then we say the name of the class. Some of the, like, we'll still send our, I don't know if we're gonna send our core training classes out every morning. Maybe I'll probably put it into the Teams chat. So I really would love if you guys would download Teams. I have to talk to the managers about what's the right way to communicate. Because again, you guys as the core training group know that you need to be on these classes on Tuesdays and Fridays at 9. So do we as managers need to like push out an email with the link every time, or should you just know and like have it in your calendar? You can always go to the training calendar and get the link. The Zoom link for the core training classes is all the same. So if you just bookmark this or save it somewhere, like the Zoom link is always going to be the same for the Tuesday and Fridays at 9 a.m. Angela, what am I missing?
No, I think that's good. When I teach what, 4 or 5 different ones. Some are CE, some aren't. And I usually do try to send a link out the day before. But I think, as a member of kind of this group, this core training, group, just expect that, it's going to be on Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah, I think the CE classes will always send a link out because that's for like all the agents in the company. The core training classes, we may not send a link out every time. I don't know. We'll have to think about that.
Okay,
Sorry.
how many classes are there? Just to put them on my calendar, otherwise
It's like 20 or 21. So you should have,
Okay.
when you get the like
Okay,
ICA
perfect.
addendum, it lists out all the ones that we consider to be part of the course. And again, a part of the curriculum. Again, like if you have to miss sometimes, like
Yeah.
that can happen, but
I just like to have it on my calendar so I can.
Yeah.
If you go through the BF calendar,
I'll
just
see
kind
it there.
I'm gonna put
it's
that
on
link.
there, and we plan it per quarter. So
Okay.
now I guess the classes are there through March, and then we
Yeah.
usually
Yeah. So
rotate back
this is-
through.
Okay,
This is the
great.
BF office training calendar. And I would encourage you just to bookmark this. If agents are like, where do I find the link for that? I'm like, oh, it's in BF office in the training calendar, always. So if you just bookmark this, this is where you can find it. And you can see, actually, I can show it to you guys. Let's see there. You can see like, this is the calendar. BF, I just have it bookmarked here, BF office training calendar, so I go to it so often. And you can see everything that's happening training wise. If something like this is managing your business, Jennifer's going to do a real estate reviews class on Thursday, which should be awesome. That's not a core skill, but it's important and can't hurt. It's a ninja skill. And then winning the listing, Jennifer does these amazing listing classes. Part 2 is happening Friday. And then let's see, when's our next CE class? When we do CE classes, she puts them in gray. For those of you that have been licensed more than 2 years and need CE classes. If you are newly licensed, you're still going to need Legal 1 and Legal 2. regardless of whether you're getting SAE credit or CE credit. So I would recommend coming to those. We will do those, 3 or 4 times a year in person only. Marty's asking about GRI. So GRI is, it's offered by the local board. Does anyone have questions about the training calendar before we move on? I just put the link in the, I'll send it all to you guys too. Highly recommend bookmarking it. Because then you can see what's coming up. And then there will be occasionally there might be a Tuesday where nothing's happening. That we just haven't, not always, but sometimes.
Well,
So
y'all are great about the reminders and sending email out and all that. It helps a lot. So
awesome. Awesome. So she's asking about the GRI, which is what it kind of like, since you have to do that like burdensome load of SAE credit in your first license renewal, we recommend doing the GRI. You can sure go on to Champions and buy the like package of like all those classes, but like sitting at the computer and clicking through is probably not going to be like the most value to you. And people do say that GRI classes are generally pretty good and pretty valuable. You have to find them through, I'll send that too. You have to find them through the local boards, but you can go and take them. If you're a member of MetroTex, you can take it even at GFWR or CCIR or whatever. So recommend doing that. Questions, thoughts? Do we feel like we have what we need? Hopefully you guys, this will be valuable, not only in terms of like the classes, but also in terms of you guys like getting to know each other and seeing the faces of like other people that are the same, so that when you're in the office, you like can have a buddy and someone to go on tour with or whatever. Like there's a lot of good synergy there is having like a group doing the same thing. So questions, thoughts? All right, so then remember we have Friday we'll be with Jennifer winning the listing part 2. She did winning the listing part 1 a couple weeks ago, and I can send the recording to that if you want to it's a really good class. Again, lots of details, lots to do. I know you guys probably feel like you're being sprayed in the face with a fire hose, which is kind of like what being a realtor is. Yay. Okay. Well, that's all I got then. Thanks guys. If you need anything, let me know. I'll put the recording into the chat.